In this session, we're going to take a look at how to properly back up your WordPress website. There are really two elements that need to be backed up. One is the database, and the other is all your files. If you back up only one or the other, you will not get a good restore in the event of a problem. So we need to do both. First, let's take a look at a manual backup. It's surprisingly easy. This is my FTP client. On the right is my server, and on the left is my local machine. I simply downloaded all the files, and now I have a file system backup. Now I also need to do the database. One of the easiest tools to use for that is called phpMyAdmin. Most hosts provide it for you. If they don't, it's not that hard to install. You can download it from phpMyAdmin.net, put it in a folder, edit the config file to put in a hashtag, and it's ready to go. I'm looking here at all of the tables for a standard MySQL install. There aren't that many. I want to back them all up. So while I'm here at this page that shows them all, I click Export. I'm going to choose Custom, and there's only one thing I want to change. I want to include Add Dropped Table. That means it'll overwrite anything that's in here the next time I restore from this backup. Then I hit Go, and I get a file. I'm going to include it right in my WordPress backup. There. Now, I could make a zip file with my operating system of that whole folder, and I would have a manual backup. Piece of cake. If I wanted to restore manually, I could simply copy the files back the way I copied them down, and then here in phpMyAdmin, there's an Import tab. I browse to that SQL file, and I don't need to change anything else. I just hit Go, and there we are. I've just imported with 55 queries. There, I just restored from my manual backup. Next, let's take a look at some more automated options. If we go to Plugins and search for Backup, you'll see that we found 554 items. Most of these plugins do backups. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them really aren't. If you want to go the free route, experiment with these. Find one that you're comfortable with. Find one that you can prove makes good backups and is easy to restore from. However, for the rest of this session, we're going to take a look at a paid plugin called Backup Buddy. In my opinion, it is hands down the best one available. I haven't yet done any configuration on this. This is the way it looks right out of the box. It needs my email address so that it can email me to let me know that backups have been made and if there are any problems. I'm going to create a password for restoring or migrating my backups. This is so that if someone gets a hold of the backup file of my site, they can't simply upload it and recreate my site. So let's put something in. Then we have to choose where we want our backups stored. Local means on the server with the site. This is not ideal because if your site goes up in flames because a meteor hits it, you won't have backups. One option is Backup Buddy Stash. When you buy this plugin, you are given for free 1 GB of storage space on their servers. If you have a small site and you just run it yourself, this is a great option. Another option is FTP. Backup Buddy can simply FTP the file anyplace. Another is email. This is not recommended. It sends it as an attachment, and if you have any kind of size to your site, your mail server will cry. Then there's Amazon S3, Rackspace, and Dropbox. If you have accounts there, then you can simply configure this plugin to store there. I'm going to keep local, just because it's easiest for this demonstration. And then how often do you want to do your backups? No automated schedule, manual only. Starter, which is a monthly complete with a weekly database. And then Active Blogger, weekly complete backup and daily database backup. This can be further refined once we get into the settings for real. This is mostly just a wizard. Now before I save and make my first backup, I want to click over here to the overview. It's possible to receive error notifications via email. You can set local archive storage limits to keep your backups from filling up your hard drive. Here's where they say we can go to the scheduling page to further refine those schedules we talked about. And then it says read the tabbed sections above or tutorials and videos linked in the tutorials and support box to the right for more in-depth information. I'd like to point out that because this is a paid plugin, support and tutorials are very common, and they do a really great job of helping you out if you get stuck. We'll go over main features in a moment. Additional features. You can choose remote destinations. You can check your server information to make sure that this is going to work at all. And then BuddyPress also comes with a malware scan. And then it talks about scheduling again. Here's a section for logging and debugging. If there are any problems, you can come here to see what's going on. And then there's version history. This tab has some information about how backups happen. Here it talks about your database backup and a full backup. And this is an important bit of information. Local backup storage directory. It tells you where on the server it's going to put your files. Another feature of Backup Buddy is the Migrate and Restore option. It has a tool to help you move your site from one server to another, which is a surprisingly difficult project. With Backup Buddy, though, you simply do a backup, grab the restore file, and put it on the new server, and away you go. So let's go back to Quick Setup, and I'm just going to click the big red button, and we'll see how it goes. It's doing the settings export. It already did the database export, and now it's doing the files export, and it's done. Now this went pretty quick because this is a pretty new install of WordPress. If you have a large site with a bunch of files, particularly images, this process can take 20 minutes or even 30 minutes. If you're doing it automated, you won't even notice and you won't care. If you're doing it manual, you're probably going to click the button and sit there looking at it for a while. But just know that it takes a while and be patient. In this window is all the information about what it did. If you really want to know how it works, this is a good thing to read. Otherwise, just smile and nod. So here are some buttons. I can download the backup, I can send the backup to a destination, or I can go back to the backups page. I'm going to download this one. Now let's go back to the backups page. So here are some options. We can choose to do a database backup or a complete backup. Clicking these buttons is the same as clicking the big red button I did earlier. This is our local archive files. Here's the one I just made. I could download it, send it, view the contents, get the hash, which is a unique identifier for this file to prove that it's the real one, or look at a note. Putting a note in here will attach it to the zip file. It indicates what type it is, the file size, when it was created, how long it took to make, and whether or not it's a valid backup. Let's click View Details. It shows that the file exists, the database file exists, the wp-config file exists, how long it took for all the different sections, and some meta information about the zip file itself. If you really want to get in deep, you can display advanced debugging, but that's a big rabbit hole and we're not going to go down that right now. Something recently new to Backup Buddy is the ability to look at the files inside the zip and restore individual files instead of having to do a complete site backup. We can click right here to view zip contents. And here are the files. Let's look at some of the other options. I'd actually like to start at the bottom at Settings. Here are some of the settings that we set earlier. There's the import buddy password, which we set, and the repair buddy password, which by default is the same. Local storage directory, who is allowed to run backups, what log level we have, maximum log level size, enable backup reminders, and we can optionally include the time in the backup file. Here we can set email addresses for different reporting levels. And then here are local archive storage limits, so your backups don't get carried away. Here in the database backup setup, by default, it only backs up WordPress tables. You can optionally tell it to include other tables. So if you have some custom ones, or perhaps just some additional files from another WordPress install, you can throw them in here if you wish. The same holds true here of file and directory exclusions. You can include custom files and exclude other files. There are a number of options here for troubleshooting and compatibility. Generally, you don't need to mess with these. However, if you have trouble and you go to the documentation, they will probably send you here and tell you to check any or all of them to figure out what's going on. Here at the bottom right, you can optionally import or export your settings. So if you spend a lot of time setting this all up, you can then export your settings. And then if you have to restore, you can import them back in. Let's look at scheduling. The scheduler is fairly flexible. You can create a schedule, and in that schedule, tell it to be database or full, how often you want to go, the date time of when the next one is, and optionally include a remote destination. You can also optionally delete the local backup file after the remote send. Schedules can be enabled or disabled, so you can create one, but not run it all the time. So for example, you could set one up to run while you're on vacation or something. Here are the default schedules. When we set this up, I chose manual, so neither of these are actually activated. Let's look at the malware scan. This scan is powered by Securi, which is another service. They have a paid level also that gets a lot more advanced if you wish to pay for it. The free one can scan your files though and look for things that shouldn't be there. Most of these boxes are information right now: web server details, the application, links that are on the site, local JavaScript, external JavaScript, iframes included, and then here's a blacklisting status. My site is not blacklisted anywhere on any of these. Now when I clicked that link to get to this page, it actually did a scan. And here at the bottom it says malware scan results are cached for 1 hour. So if I did another one, my results wouldn't change, even if I had been hacked in that time. That's to keep their server from going crazy with people just clicking the button over and over again. Let's look at the server information button. This gives us information about the server and about the software that runs on it and can indicate any changes that need to be made. I'm looking at the server right now, and it looks like I'm a little behind in my version, but it's merely a warning. The version I have works fine. Then there are a number of things here that it says that it passes on. My paths pass, and it shows my URLs and paths. Under database, it shows what tables I have, when they were updated and checked, and whether or not they're corrupt. Mine are all good. The directory size map can help you figure out where large files are. The directory size listing is very similar. Let's click Display Directory Size Map. That didn't take very long because this is a pretty new install of WordPress, and I don't have a WP content folder full of gigabytes of pictures. On the left is my main folder. It's 36.01 megabytes. Within it are WP content, WP includes, and WP admin. And then within that, and then within those, are these other folders. This helps you know where your large files are, or what folders are holding a large number of images, etc. Let's check out remote destinations. Now, we mostly went over these already, so I won't spend too much time. Backup Buddy Stash is a great deal. If your backups don't go more than 1 gig, I'd say go for it. But even if they do, you can pay for extra storage. Amazon S3 and Dropbox both work well. Email, not recommended. FTP, I also don't really recommend this one, because every time you use FTP, your username and password credentials are sent in the clear over the internet. Local directory and Rackspace. If you're unfamiliar with all of these, and you're just looking for someplace, I would first recommend Stash. Alright, let's look at Restore and Migrate, because this is where you'll be in the middle of the night when your site's caught on fire. Earlier, we downloaded our backup file. If we wanted to restore with it, we need an additional script called Import Buddy that knows how to use that zip file. Right here you can download it or send it to a destination. I'm going to download it. Now, to download, either enter a new password for just this download or leave it blank to use your default Import Buddy password. I'm going to leave it at the default. There, now I have Import Buddy. Now, I'm actually going to wipe out this entire install and show you how to do a backup and show you how to do a restore. Alright, through the miracle of video editing, I was able to delete my entire website in mere seconds. What we're looking at here is the placeholder that my server uses on an empty website. And then if we look at the folder for it, you can see it's quite empty. So now I'm going to upload the backup that I made and Import Buddy. There, now I have those two files uploaded. I'm going to reload my page, and nothing changes because I don't have an index.php file. However, if I go to importbuddy.php, then the magic happens. First, I have to put in my password. Then I can choose where I want to restore from. It recognized that I have a file right on the server. Optionally, I could upload right from here, or I could restore from Stash. In that case, I wouldn't have to worry about putting my files up. They would download it for me. I'm going to choose Server. I'm going to look at server information. It tells me my PHP memory limit is a little low. I should be fine though. It's merely a warning. Let's look at advanced options. If I wanted to, I could skip zip file extraction. That would be if I manually opened that zip file. I could force medium speed compatibility mode if I needed to, or force slow speed compatibility mode. I can also optionally skip the migration of the htaccess file and show detailed PHP warnings. Right now, logging is set to everything. So let's go to the next step. Backup Buddy just unzipped my backup file. There is one warning here, unable to rename .htaccess file to .htaccess.bb_temp. Your permissions may be too strict. You may wish to manually rename this file and or check permissions before proceeding. I'm fairly certain that warning is safe to ignore, so we're going to go to the next step. URL settings. This is where we could optionally put in something different. I'm actually restoring to the same site, so I'm going to leave it like this. But if I were migrating, I could put in a new site address here, and it would automatically update all the paths in the database to reflect this new address. This option allows you to set a different custom site address. If you recall, in the general settings, you can put in your site address as well as your blog address. This gives you the option to do that here as well. Here's where you put in your database connection information. If you were migrating, you might need to create a new database, which is why this information is here. But if you're simply restoring to the same place, you can probably use the same information that was in there before. Let's test the database settings. Success all the way around. There are some advanced options. You can skip some things and delete some things. I don't recommend using any of these unless you really get in a hole. Initial database import complete. Next, the data in the database will be migrated to account for any file path or URL changes. This is what I was mentioning about migrating. Imported site is here. Important. Verify site functionality, then proceed to the next step. So let's open this in a new tab, and there's our site back. We're even still logged in because it remembered my cookie from before, so I can still get into the admin area. So our site works. And here we have some options. We could delete the backup zip archive. We could delete temporary import files. We could delete the Import Buddy tool files and delete importbuddy.txt log file. I recommend doing these things because they are sitting out there on the internet and somebody could download them and learn a lot about your site. So I'm going to click Clean Up and Remove Temporary Files. And now we're done. And here's our site. Most backup plugins are going to behave similarly to this. They will make a backup, they will require you to store your backup file someplace, and then when you want to do a restore, their script will need access to your backup file. As I mentioned at the beginning, find one that you're comfortable with and use that one. Many of them are excellent. You don't have to pay for Backup Buddy, it's merely the one that I'm most comfortable with. I do recommend it, but if you're comfortable with a free one and it works for you, by all means go for it.